Mark Gronowski played much better on Saturday night against UMass, a sign of things to come for the Iowa offense.
You are Locked On Hawkeyes, your daily podcast on the Iowa Hawkeyes. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, welcome in. I'm Trent Condon, and this is the Locked On Hawkeyes podcast. Thanks for making Locked On Hawkeyes your first listen every day. I've been covering the Hawkeyes for over 20 years on the radio here in the great state of Iowa. You can hear me currently on the Iowa Sports Radio Network with stations in Des Moines, 106.3 KXNO, along with Sioux City, the Quad Cities, Iowa City, and Cedar Rapids. Hear me each weekday from noon to 2. Today's episode of Locked On Hawkeyes is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. Download the app today. We are going to take a look today at the short week coming up this week with the Friday night affair against Rutgers. Also take a peek at the numbers from Pro Football Focus and see if it exactly grades out with the way that we saw things on the field on Saturday night against UMass. And of course, our weekly rewatch as we go back and look through the film and see what we can pick away in our second viewing of the Hawkeyes game. Before we get to all that though, just an opening thought. And after we had our rapid reaction podcast and had that to you, I know there's a lot of people out there. There's a lot of people that regardless of what happens with Kirk Ferentz, you're ready for a change. You're ready to move on. So there's a famous phrase, fellowship of the miserable. And it was Rick Pitino used this talking about the negativity around the fan base with the Boston Celtics when he was there. And there's many times that this phrase comes into my head when it pertains to Hawkeye fans. And certainly when it comes to Hawkeye fans as it goes to Kirk Ferentz. Look, I have my own thoughts. I have my own ideas. And certainly there are plenty of negatives and frustrations that I have at times with the Iowa football program. And I know that I'm not perfect myself, but the fellowship of the miserable, when it comes to this program and a segment of the fan base that can't celebrate a guy that sets the wins record, that has to go right to negative right away with every single thing. Look, we're going to point at the negatives as they happen. And we're going to talk today about the passing game and if there's really signs of life out of what they're doing. I get that part of it, but how can you live where everything has to be at that angle, where every single time any positive that is taken with the Hawkeye head coach and you have to turn it into a negative? Let's move on. Let's get past the fellowship of the miserable just for a moment. We're Hawkeye fans. Let's bring some positivity there. When there's negativity, true negativity, we'll definitely bring it up because I think you everydayers, you know, I'm not going to sit back and just say, everything's great. There's nothing to worry about here. When there needs to be something called out, I absolutely will be here calling it out. But for the here and now on a night to be celebrated, can we just enjoy a little positivity around the football program? All right, enough of that. Let's go back and see what we saw on our second viewing of the Iowa win, 47-7 against UMass over the evening. So one thing that jumped out again, the second viewing was much like the same. That UMass team is bad. I mean, that's a bad football team, and you can see why year after year after year, they're one of the worst football teams in the country. Season after season, they're making the move back to the MAC where they were before, at least for football, and I don't think it's going to go very well, even in a conference as down as the MAC is, and once again, this season. It's going to be ugly for them. So we got that caveat out of the way, push that to the side. Let's talk about what we saw about. And going early on, the two shots down the field early in the football game. The first pass, the second play of the game, an absolute beauty to Sam Phillips. And what I loved about this play, seeing it again, he had a post route up top. That's where he looked first. And then he went through his progression, got to his second read, found Sam Phillips all alone up that left sideline. That is growth out of Mark Gronowski. And if you go back and you read people that talk about the all-22, what you see on film, those kind of things, that has been the bugaboo the first couple of games is Mark Gronowski going through his progressions. Now, in that instance, he did just that. Then a play later, it's the touchdown pass to Seth Anderson, RPO system, very good read out of Gronowski, found him open, all alone, great route, and a great ball right on the money for that one. And as you go through it, you look at Mark Gronowski and the growth and what we saw. He was, once again, hurt by drops. Now, there was one I thought it was interesting. Anthony Herron was talking a little bit about the flight path of the ball. And on the pass, I believe it was to KJ Parker on the drop that he had, he mentioned that the spiral, the tip of the ball was pointed up there on that play, makes it a little bit more difficult. Now, KJ Parker would say that he definitely needs to catch that ball. There was another pass that was maybe the worst pass of the night that he had to KJ Parker. It was a concept. They had a double move on the outside and they went underneath kind of a deep drag route about 15 yards down the field, and he just airmailed it. Now, I would argue also on that one, not to come to the defense of Mark Gronowski, on that play, when you have Howard dragging out on that double move on the outside, probably want to have that route a little bit further down the field because it was a tight window. Still, there was somebody underneath there that Gronowski had to get the ball over, but that was probably his worst throw of the night. So a lot of positives to take away. Again, with the caveat that we put in there, UMass is bad. All right, we got that. But we saw those signs of growth going through. Some good play calls in there. Love the look to the right side, the screen pass that they had back to the left to Xavier Williams. I thought that was a really good play call and something really good to see there. There's growth. Now, they got to catch the ball. These wide receivers have to be there. But I think we're at the point in time now where we're seeing there are some passes in the middle field. Definitely have to have that. There was the stretching of the field. Definitely wanted to see that, and we did. But Sam Phillips needs to be a huge part of this offense now. I think 3 games into the season now, we see there's a reason that this guy put up big numbers at the FCS level. He has to be a big part of it. Now, 5'7", how good of a blocker is he? Who knows? But I think overall, that's one thing. Need to get Sam Phillips. He needs to be a big part of the playbook every single week. Design plays, doing different things with his speed, his ability. You need to get him involved. Good to see 2 touchdowns as well from Seth Anderson. We talked about a ton of him in the springtime. Saw a lot of good things that definitely bounced off the page. On the defensive side of the ball, a couple of things I thought stood out to me. First was seeing both Herkett and Llewellyn certainly look engaged. Saw, of course, the stunting that they do so often, but Llewellyn also going back to that move with the spin move that he's so good at and just so apt at making plays when he comes off that spin move and doing it both directions. This one was an inside spin. We're used to seeing that outside spin. That one jumped out as he was able to chase down the quarterback on one of those plays and shove him, get him out of the pocket. So those are a few things that went. Obviously, Gronowski's a big part of it. This was a game. They went into it and made the decision. We're going to make a conscious effort here. We have to get this pass game going. And with the short week against Rutgers, the big matchup against Indiana, those matchups to kick off Big Ten play before Iowa gets to their first bye week of the season, I think we saw the growth that we were looking for. Yeah, it would have been great to go over 200 yards. It would have been great to see and get that bugaboo dating back over a year. The last time Iowa threw for over even 200 yards in a game came in the matchup by a quarterback in the matchup against Illinois State by McNamara a season ago. But there was growth there. The growth continues for Mark Gronowski. And, another part is you're also, as an offensive coordinator, as Tim Lester is learning more about the things that he's good at. He didn't have the springtime. You didn't have that opportunity to see his strengths, to see his weaknesses, see the things that he reads well, that he does well, and be able to do that. They're all learning on the job here. Look, if Iowa gets to the bye week at 4-1, this conversation definitely shifts in a big time way. I get the frustration, the scar tissue that is still there coming off the loss to Iowa State. That was incredibly frustrating. The way that game played out felt like it was a very winnable game. Iowa made the plays defensively at times to make it happen, and it just didn't. And then the way the final drive obviously went was also, I think, a big component to that. They're also going to have to figure things out at the tight end position. And Zach Ortworth, he said on Tuesday, he's not a very good blocker. And you got Hayden Large out there, a converted H-back, kind of fullback role. He's back out of the tight end position, had a nice catch up on the left side on one of the plays. But you got to figure out what you're going to do there, or if it just makes more sense. And if I was able to run out of three wide receiver personnel, if you're going that direction, if that makes more sense for this Iowa team and just going with a single tight end on the field a whole lot more than they're used to. That's what this is about, trying to figure that all out. And it ends with a dominating performance against UMass. Iowa did what they're supposed to do. Look, this was what the Albany game should have looked like, right? That domination that we were hoping for. That was what we were looking to see in the matchup against Albany. Instead, they saw the issues. Gronowski too charged up, just struggling, whatever the reason was. And they put it in the lockbox, and they just ran the football for 310 yards. This was good to see them working through some of their issues. And also Hank Brown, I thought there were some good things from him as well. You can definitely see the arm talent that comes from Hank Brown and some positives as we look towards the future of the quarterback spot at Iowa. And hopefully, you would hope he can continue to develop him, Jeremy Heklinski. Both those guys will be battling going into next season, and we'll see who the better quarterback is. And you don't have to spend the money to go out and get a quarterback. Instead, you can fill in other holes in your roster and other concern areas if that plays out in that fashion. Locked On Hawkeyes, your team every day. We got you covered here on the Hawkeye front. We continue Locked On Hawkeyes, and let's take a look at the numbers. Let's see if what we saw on the film, what we saw during the game, if it matches up with the guys at Pro Football Focus, what they have to say about the game. We'll do that as we continue Locked On Hawkeyes. Quick question for all you college football fans out there. If you could go back in time, sit in the front row of your school's biggest rivalry game, what hat would you be wearing? Yeah, I said hat. For me, it would be the game. It's the hat I'm wearing right now if you're watching us on YouTube. And these aren't just hats. They're the same vintage styles worn by fans back in the 80s and 90s. You saw me in the student section in the late 90s. Guess what? This was the hat I was wearing, and now I'm wearing it here. They can still go for the same price they did back then, too. How about this? When you use code LOCKEDON, you're going to get your vintage hat for $16.99. Head to thegamecaps.com. Thegamecaps.com. Grab your team's classic bar or retro circle design and use the code LOCKEDON for an exclusive discount. Because legends wear the game. Caffeine just got a flavor upgrade. 5-hour energy shots deliver tasty caffeine in 17 bold flavors. Each 2-ounce shot packs the caffeine of a premium 12-ounce cup of coffee, plus B vitamins and nutrients with zero sugar and zero crashes. What I love most is how portable they are. Big taste, tiny shot, hold in your pocket, throw in your backpack. Whatever it is, you can take it anywhere and get that boost when you need it. Maybe it's during that long tailgate. You know you got a long one coming. Looking forward to the next home game against Indiana. 2:30 kickoff. Put a 5-hour energy in your pocket and you'll be ready to go. Take them wherever you are and love that they are sugar-free. I love how fast it kicks in. Sugar-free, I don't have to worry about that crash coming later on. Enough with boring, flavorless caffeine. It's time to give your caffeine a flavor upgrade with 5-hour energy shots. Get the favorites you love or be bold and try something new in store and online at www.5hourenergy.com. That's 5hourenergy.com or on Amazon today. Trent Condon with you here on the Locked On Hawkeyes podcast. As always, thanks for making Locked On Hawkeyes your first listen every day. A big thank you to everydayers with us every day joining us here. All right, let's get back into it and look back at the win against UMass. Let's go into the numbers from Pro Football Focus. PFF, they grade the film, all 22, and they take a look at everything and get a better view of things at times. Now, you can agree, disagree, and a lot of times these numbers don't exactly match up with what we see, but that's what we go through the exercise and see what we saw watching the game kind of matches up as they break down the film a little bit further. Mark Gronowski grades out with a 65.6 grade overall, 72.1 for Hank Brown at the quarterback position. Good numbers there for Hank Brown and solid for Mark Gronowski as well. Really no surprise. Also remember, Mark Gronowski, what more could have been in that game? 120 yards in passing in the first quarter. They would have let it chuck it around a little bit more. Personally would have liked to see a little bit more than that. All right, let's go to running back. And with the injury to Xavier Williams. Now, the press depth chart press release came out today. No changes on the depth chart. We saw Xavier Williams. He was in a sling after the game. What does that mean going forward? We await also, and we'll probably find out tomorrow about the potential of a return of getting back out onto the field, starting running back Kamari Moulton and what that's going to look like. But if Williams is out, who's it going to be? We've talked about Terrell Washington Jr. He is more that third down rollback that seems to fit his type a little bit better. Jazzion Patterson came in and does what Jazzion Patterson does seemingly every single time. He runs hard. He's going to make the makeables. He's going to get you a couple of yards at minimum seemingly every single carry. Jazzion Patterson, he grades out at a 72. But a little bit higher than that was Nathan McNeil. Now, he was going up, yes, against a tired UMass defense on Saturday, much like we talked about in Albany. But you can just tell Nathan McNeil, there is something special with this true freshman running back. He is out there. He's going to be a part of the plan. And if this injury for Williams turns out to be a little bit more, we'll see exactly how that plays out. and how much more Nathan McNeil we're going to see. Brevin Dahl also got into the game late as he got a couple of carries in the final drive of the game. Over 2 wide receiver, and your top-ranked wide receiver was Sam Phillips. Love to see this, though. Passing grade, very good. 76 overall. That's an outstanding number, and certainly for an Iowa wide receiver, we don't have a ton of those. But also, his run blocking grade was really good. In fact, the best out of the wide receivers from Sam Phillips, a 74.8. As we talked about a little bit earlier, he's not a big guy, just 5'7", but he can be out there and run blocking on top of what he can do in the passing game. That is certainly a good thing. Next up, Caden Weechan played a couple of snaps in the game at receiver, but Seth Anderson, 62.4 overall. 2 touchdowns, obviously, in the game. KJ Parker, I was a little bit surprised. His number a little bit higher than I anticipate, a 60.8, as he had the 2 drops in the game. We talked about that route. Maybe need to get a little bit deeper on that overthrow from Gronowski. Then Dayton Howard, he was a 56, followed up by Jacob Gill. Not a great game for Gill from the PFF analysis. They had him at a 50.4. Up next is the tight end position. Your top-ranked tight end in the ball game, it was Hayden Large, a 71 grade overall, good in blocking and also out in the pass game. Mentioned that catch that he had up the left side. Zach Ortworth, pretty good overall at 55.5. Run blocking, though, the demerit against him, as we've talked about, he's admitted, not a great run blocker. Michael Burt out there, but how about DJ Voname, who didn't grade out very well, but he played a ton. In fact, out of these tight ends, he played the most in this game. I was a little bit surprised we didn't see Thomas Meyer out there with the tight ends. Michael Burt out there with a 71.5. And then finally, the offensive line. Normally, it is the stalwart. How about this? 14 offensive linemen played in the game. Jennings Dunker grades out the top guy at a 78.8. Cade Peepers, second on the list, followed up by Logan Jones. Leighton Jones, also a good grade from him with a 75.4, including an outstanding 78.6 run blocking game for Leighton Jones, and likely your heir apparent to take over at left guard next season. Bo Stevens, the starting left guard, he's up next with a 72 grade. Trevor Lauk, also a 72. Now, it was just a couple of plays that I was keying in on. Lauk, really liked what I saw out of him. Jack Dotzler, good game out of him, 71.5. And then you got the newbies out there. A lot of new faces. Cannon Leonard, the huge 6'9" dude. Lucas Allgaier, the freshman, a 64. Mike Malinsky, good to see him out there. Cale Winter and Bodie McCaslin all got to play in the game. So those are the numbers from Pro Football Focus over on the offensive side of the football. To the defense we go, and to the defensive line, where your top-graded player in limited reps was Luke Gaffney. Hey, he was out there making plays. Good to see him out there doing some things. A pass rush grade of 93.6. Overall, a 95.7. Again, limited reps, but still great to see. Aaron Graves, I thought he was outstanding, and certainly the numbers from PFF back that up at 81.7 for him. Herkett and Llewellyn next up, both above average for both of those guys, with a 75.8 and a 72.7 respectively for Herkett and Llewellyn. Jose Epinesa, he makes his Hawkeye debut, a 72 grade for him as he came in late in the game. Same with Maddox. Borcherding Johnson got some run out there on the defensive line. A good grade also for Brian Allen. He's at a 71. Good to see. Speaking of good to see, a couple other names out there. Drew Campbell, coming off surgery. He was slow coming around, wasn't available at the beginning of the year. He was able to get out there on the field. Chime Shinike, I think he's going to be a piece going forward. He was out there and he graded out pretty well with a 67.4. There's Jonah Pace. He seems to be all over the place. Jeremiah Hunter, he played plenty in the game. Will Hubert, Kenneth Merriweather, Bryce Hawthorne, Joseph Anderson also got onto the field. So good numbers there over on the defense, again, as they played a ton of guys. 2 linebacker. Your top-ranked guy, limited reps again, Zach Tweet, an 82 for him. Carson Shire, though, outstanding again. Shire with a 77.1 grade. How about Jaden Montgomery? Now, one thing that doesn't go into those numbers, the punt block, a 75.9 grade for Montgomery, but he was the guy that whiffed that led to that block punt for Reese Dakin. Jackson Rexroth, he was out there plenty. He had a 73.7. Preston Reese, we got to see him along with Weisskopf and Buffington all out there. Jaden Harrell, a little bit lower. He was a 65.6 grade, which is 7th on the list of linebackers. Again, different number of reps. Also got to see a little Nolan DeLong and Landon Van Kettgrix out there in the linebacker spot. Then we wrap it up with the numbers at defensive back. A great number for Zach Lutmer on the back end of the defense, an 82 grade for him. Outstanding tackle numbers and coverage numbers both for Zach Lutmer. Good game again from TJ Hall. He grades out with a 73.9. Rashad Godfrey got in there late. He graded out well with a 72.3. There's Xavier Wampa. Good grade for him, along with Jalen Watson and Cohen Entringer, all those guys. Also good to see Alex Moda out there running around. He's battled a ton of injuries, was at wide receiver, now over at defensive back. Here's a name you might remember from a year ago because, well, he was the emergency quarterback a year ago. Kyler Girardi got out on the field, a 62.7. Deshaun Lee a little bit lower with a 60 grade for him. And then finally, Kale Kolarek. So that's what we have overall, the defensive numbers from Pro Football Focus. One final thing. It doesn't deal with the numbers, but it sprang to memory when I brought up Montgomery and the miss that he had on the block on the punt. It's special teams overall. Just a little bit concerning what we saw. Snaps were off, missed extra point, missed field goal, some bobbling of snaps. Snaps not great. The block punt, as good as special teams were in the return game and with what Caden Weechin did, and maybe that kind of overshadowed the rest. Look, I was going into an environment on Friday night. They're going to be charged up. They're going to be ready to go. And Rutgers, this is a Rutgers team that's playing well. They're going to be able to score some points. Iowa still is not at a spot where they can afford to leave points on the field. And this needs to be buttoned up. Now, we talked about coming into the season that the long snapping duties were going to be something that was going to be coming down to the wire. And they made the determination there. Just something to keep an eye on if there's going to be any movement, any changes there, because that part of the special teams wasn't very good for the Hawkeyes on Saturday night. Well, mention it. It's Rutgers coming up this week. Let's take a quick preview ahead to Rutgers and the short week. A Friday game, going to throw off timing for everybody. We'll talk a little bit about it and how difficult it's going to be to prepare for this matchup against the Scarlet Knights with the short week. We'll do that as we continue. What's next for the Hawkeyes on Locked On Hawkeyes? This episode is brought to you by PrizePicks, the daily fantasy app where making the right call can actually pay off. You and I make decisions every day, but on PrizePicks, being right means cashing in. With football back, PrizePicks is the simplest and fastest way to get in on the action. Just pick more or less of 2 to 6 player projections, and you can take your takes that you have for the game into real prizes, all in less than 60 seconds. Taking a look tonight, Monday Night Football. Maybe you got something on Baker Mayfield. How about Baker more or less 250 yards passing? Or you're going the other way. You're taking a look at the nightcap and you say, you know what? I absolutely love what we're seeing with Justin Herbert. You're going to go more or less 2.5 passing touchdowns. The best part, even if one of your picks misses, PrizePicks invented the flex play, so you can still double your money. Download the PrizePicks app today and use code LOCKEDONCollege to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code LOCKEDONCollege for $50 in lineups after your first $5 play. PrizePicks, it's good to be right. The NFL season is here and FanDuel is making sure you're ready for kickoff with a can't-miss offer. Right now, new customers can bet just $5. If your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. FanDuel app, I absolutely love using it for so many different reasons. The same game parlays where you can put a bunch of different things together, see if you can come out big. Jumping in live as the action's happening. Love the live betting over at FanDuel. It's quick, it's easy, and it's the best way to add a little bit more energy to your Sundays and your football weekends. Are you ready to play? Download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com to place your first $5 bet. FanDuel.com. Trent Condon back with you one final time on the Locked On Hawkeyes podcast. Thanks for making Locked On Hawkeyes your first listen every day. It's Rutgers. It's Friday night. It's a short week. And as we were previewing the season during the offseason, I know a lot of people pointed to this game maybe as a tricky spot. The short week, going out to Rutgers, a team that's 3-0 on the season. Maybe this could be a difficult spot. And it very well could be. Look, Iowa has not seen enough that they're just going to be able to show up and dominate. I don't think there's any doubt and any idea for most people that that's the way this thing's going to play out. However, one of the reasons that I didn't see it the same way in some of the weird situational spots that maybe could be concerning for Iowa is just how good Iowa's been in these situations. Yes, it didn't go very well last year against UCLA. Wheels came off. Sullivan got hurt. And we saw the way that thing obviously ended up. But that was also Iowa traveling out west and a place that Iowa has historically struggled in general. But it's because usually this Iowa team is really good on the short week. And you look at what has happened now over this last decade when they play in a short week against Nebraska every single year. We know how good they've been in that spot. You understand that Iowa football, there's just a certain beat that's always a part of it. And when that gets interrupted, there are some programs that struggle, but that has not been the case for Iowa historically. Also, a couple other numbers here that I think point a pretty good picture for Iowa and their chances coming up this weekend. You start with this. Rutgers right now is 125th in the country. They're giving up 7.4 yards per play. That is certainly a concerning number. Now, Iowa's got to take advantage. The other part is against the run. Rutgers is giving up 6 yards per rush. Remember, sacks are also a part of that. 6 yards per rush. That's 128th in the country to this point. Now, that's not to say that Rutgers doesn't have weapons, because they do. Kalikmanis is playing very well. Now, he hasn't played exactly the most difficult of competition, but yes, if it feels like Kalikmanis has been around forever, yes, he has, but he's still there. And he was at Minnesota at the beginning of his career and now is doing a nice job in his final go-around this season. He's completing 73% of his passes, 7 touchdowns, no interceptions on the season. He's going to be able to chuck the ball around. Now, Kalikmanis also has some receivers, some dudes out there, including Strong, their best wide receiver. He sat out last week, and we'll see what his availability is going to be for this one. They played Norfolk State. They dominated. I'm sure they felt like they could get through it, but we'll get more on that one. Duff, another good wide receiver. They got some guys out there. This is going to be the first time I believe that they're going to be pressed on the outside. We'll see if TJ Hall, what we've seen the first 3 weeks, if he has taken that senior leap. Deshaun Lee, how he's going to hold out there. The safety play, on and on and on. This team is going to be able to do a lot of things. Good news, though, speaking of that passing attack, is they're really banged up at tackle. They've already lost a couple of tackles because of injury. Another guy went out. Looks like he's going to be okay, but that offensive line had some issues here. This is going to have to be a game where Iowa definitely cooks and makes some plays. But I think they're going to have to score. Now, they've won some of these games, these slugfest type of games against Rutgers in the past. I think this is going to be one again where the offense needs to put points out there, not hoping for that 13-10 win. Get out there, get some points on the board, and there's going to be opportunities. We'll talk more about this game as the week goes on. We have you covered here on your daily source for Iowa Hawkeye Talk, Locked On Hawkeyes. One final note for you as well. The kickoff time has been announced for the Iowa matchup when they come back home to Kinnick Stadium next week after the Rutgers game as they take on Indiana. It will be a 2:30 kickoff. Love that. If you're watching on television, you might not love it as much, though. 2:30 kickoff on Peacock. So get your Peacock subscription if you don't already. If you want to be able to watch that one, get that up and grunting, because that is where the game is going to be. No traditional television for this one. It will be streaming only on Peacock for Iowa, Indiana, the Hoosiers with the monster matchup themselves this week, a night game as they'll be playing host to top 10 ranked Illinois. The Hoosiers, oh boy, they're clicking once again. Signetti got that team rolling. We'll see what they look like coming in after their matchup against Illinois. But Mendoza, their fine quarterback, already 9 touchdown passes through the air. Deep wide receiver group. It's going to be a good one, but Iowa's got to get it done first against Rutgers, because if Iowa loses Friday night, boy, the trajectory of the season and the conversation changes very, very quickly coming on the heels of what we saw on Saturday. That's it for today. We will be back with you here on Locked On Hawkeyes tomorrow. Thanks for making Locked On Hawkeyes your first listen every day. A lot going on here at Locked On, including our new college football show. College football fans, Locked On and Fire TV present to you College Football Kickoff. It's your ultimate college football weekly preview. Drake Toll of Locked On Big 12 leads the conversation alongside 2-time AP Coach of the Year, Gary Patterson, former college star Jesse Holley, and Locked On's local experts. It's a college football preview only Locked On could do. Catch College Football Kickoff every Thursday throughout the season, only on Fire TV. We'll talk to you again tomorrow. Thanks for being with us. Until then, go Hawks.